I'm Tara Grenevd with the Grounding and Growing Leadership podcast powered by Align, and this is episode number 2. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to dive into strengths a little bit deeper. I have a personal passion around team dynamics. In this episode, we are going to give you a tool that you can use strengths to help you uncover some natural points of tension or also opportunities to better work together using strengths. We're also going to talk a little bit about our own strengths, how they show up for us. And then in the second half, we're going to play a game called Play My Strengths. That can be a really powerful tool for addressing different team dynamics. We really hope you enjoy.
Welcome to the Grounding and Growing Leadership podcast, where everyone is a leader and leadership starts with you.
I'm Tara.
And I'm Pamela.
Thanks for listening today, and thank you for inviting us along on your leadership journey. When I'm working with teams, there's an exercise that I typically do to help us really understand each other's strengths, but more importantly, how we will each draw on or use something different in the same situation. So something happens, something comes up, or we need to work together on something, and we will each draw from a different strength of ours, even if we have a lot of strengths in common. This is an exercise that I got from other coaching friends of mine, and it's called Play My Strengths. It's a great team building, team dynamic exercise. You can certainly replicate it, or if I work with you, we probably played it. And I thought it would be fun because Pamela and I have known each other a long time, but we're still learning about each other. Just like any long-term relationship, you're going to continue to learn about each other because the dynamics change. And as Pamela likes to say, we've never done today before.
So we get to play a game on this podcast.
Get to play a game.
Yeah. And I love that we can show people also how to creatively have fun at work with having meaning for what we're doing in the discovery of who we're with on our team.
Yeah. And this exercise is great just for team building in general, for a specific, separate kind of conversation, but it's also great once you understand it to use if you are feeling stuck with someone, to bring out and just even ask the question, what strength are you pulling from in this situation? Or what strength are you leveraging? Just to understand where someone's coming from. So a couple of key things for everyone to understand about strengths, if you haven't heard me say this before. Clifton Strengths, yes, there are some stereotypical behaviors that come with each strength, but more importantly, it is measuring motivators. And it is more important to understand those motivators than to understand the behavior, because any strength on any given day can show up on a spectrum from raw to mature. So understanding the motivator helps you better understand where someone's coming from than just looking at the behavior alone, which I also think separates it from a lot of other assessments out there. It really is assessing motivators. So when you go through this exercise, that becomes even more apparent to understand what motivates people to take certain kinds of actions. And from a team dynamic standpoint, why this is so important is that we all see the world through the filter of our own talents and strengths. And so when someone is doing something that doesn't make sense or that you wouldn't do or say, we automatically, subconsciously, and instantly put a filter of, well, that must mean that they are thinking, seeing, doing, believing X, Y, Z. So we assume motivation instantly. It is a really unfortunate human trait.
And we don't ask clarifying questions.
No, because often it happens so fast we didn't even know we did it.
Yeah. Yeah. We are saying to ourselves, what I just heard them say is this. But if we would pause and actually take the time to do an exercise like this, or even ask a clarifying question. So I'm curious because what I just heard you say was this. Is that what you meant to say, or is that what you are saying?
And honestly, a third party just observer might say those weren't even the words used.
Wow.
Because we so have internalized whatever they've said through that filter, and what we retained wasn't even sometimes what words were used, depending on how activated we are. Pamela, can you share a little bit about your top 10 strengths?
Yes, here they are in order. My first one is strategic, and then connectedness, relator, individualization, activator, achiever, self-assurance, restorative, belief, and empathy. And there are colors which are assigned to each one. I have all 4 of them. There's most in the color blue, which really talks about being in the relational leadership lane. So that is me. So
Yes.
please help people understand me, Tara.
So Pamela does lead with a lot of blue themes. I always say blue is glue. So relationship building themes really help to make sure people are okay and that people are feeling connected, seen, heard. And a lot of my understanding around the domains comes from Simon Hurry with Talent to Titan. Highly recommend if you are a strengths junkie like I am, or if you are really interested in diving deeper into the psychology behind strengths, checking out his podcast and content. But people with high relationship building want to create environments of safety and are more likely to start with or be concerned first with how people are doing as opposed to outcomes. So something happens, the first thought is about how it's going to impact people, not necessarily how it's going to impact the outcome. Now you have a handful of executing themes, so you care about both.
Yeah.
But probably is just an edge around people over outcomes.
Yeah. And I think because strategic for me is number one, strategically leading through the relational lane is very different than other people who have strategic in the number one spot and who are a visionary and futuristic, such as my dear friend sitting across the table from me. But I can then quickly strategically assess what needs to be done on both sides of things. And because activator is right up there as well, I think people feel cared for as well as the outcome. But I will lead with people.
Yeah, you'll lead with people. And that strategic activator, we share that as our 1-2. I think. Is it
No, my activator's 5.
Got it.
My 2's connectedness.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Something else to just keep in mind, if you have a theme that is just solo, meaning you just have one of it in your domain, in your top 10. So for Pamela, it's strategic in the thinking themes. For myself, a ranger in the executing themes is my only executing theme. Those are going to be in service of your primary domains. So your strategic is regarding making sure people are okay. And my arranger executing is going to be in service of how we're moving something forward because of how I'm wired. So I have strategic, activator, ideation, individualization, communication, connectedness, futuristic, self-assurance, arranger, and command. So I have 40% or 4 of my themes are in influencing, which means that people with high influencing want to, or they do intuitively sense energy in a room and want to shift it towards something. And then the next largest group for me is thinking, and my thinking themes, strategic, ideation, futuristic, are all the really fast processing themes, not the slower, more detail oriented themes, as anyone who's worked with me can attest. Luckily, I have a ranger, which does help me with details when it's very specific around something. And strategic, what's interesting about strategic too, is that strategic navigates in the moment. Strategic tends to remember details that are connected in the moment, but is also filtering. And so you might, if you have high strategic, you might remember some really odd details, but then completely forget others.
Yes. And you are a master in the moment to be able to know where to navigate and where to go. And I would say intuitively that from a different perspective, I know the same. And people ask me, how do you know? How do you know how to ask that question? And all I can say is that I just know.
You just know. Yeah, I would say the same. Where I end up wrestling a little bit is my futuristic and ideation has a lot of ideas to weed through before the end is clear. But once the end is clear, everything else can come together really quickly.
And I would say where I wrestle with that is as you're processing through your futuristic and ideation, my activator hears different things. And if Tara teases me with something to do, I am a helicopter who has left the building. I need no runway whatsoever. It is already done in my mind. And so if we have to pause 24 hours on something and I didn't know that's what we were doing, I'm 10 steps ahead. The project's already done in my mind. And so we have had to learn how to navigate around those expectations and even how we communicate and how we help each other pause into our things because of how we see things. And this is why, again, strengths is so powerful. And I also just want to take care of the listener right now, Tara, because we are talking about ours, but hopefully what we're doing is to be able to make you curious to go on this exploration journey of what your motivators are. Again, strengths being a motivator. And also, Tara, just give us a little information on the likelihood of someone having our top 5 or our top 10 or in the same order that we're in? And why should they want to discover this?
Yeah. So, first of all, to Pamela's point, the chance of you having the same top 5 in the same order as someone else is 1 in 33 million. It's unlikely.
Yeah.
The chance of you having all 34, so when you take the assessment, it orders them from 1 to 34. The chance of all 34 being in the same order is improbable. So you are uniquely wired, uniquely designed. And that's one of the things I love the most about strengths is that it honors the individual and that each person brings something really valuable and different to contribute. And so it's important that you understand your own. It's also why I am passionate about people unlocking or getting access to their full 34 results and not just the top 5. First of all, the top 5 is kind of like going to a buffet and getting a glass of water.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because for 2 reasons. One, you're only getting really half or less of the picture of yourself. We operate out of our top 10 to 15 all the time instinctively. And so if you've ever just gotten your top 5 listener and you thought, oh, I'm just really surprised this isn't there, it might be.
Yeah.
So go unlock your 34. You'll be amazed. And if you want help with that, reach out to me at tara@aligntransform.com and we can help you with that. But the other reason is when you get your full 34, the first 12 pages of that full 34 report are customized to you. So it's going to give you insights. Pamela mentioned that she and I both have strategic number 1. But if you look at her 34 report from Gallup and mine, the insights under strategic are going to be different because we have different overall strengths in our profile. So it's taking theme dynamics into account. So how does strategic show up when you also have these other 9 themes in your top 10? So it's more customized to you. So that's important to understand. And that's why exploring your own strengths is really important, is because you need to understand them well enough so that you can help others understand you.
Oh, that's so good. And can you just briefly say, what is the difference between this and maybe some of the other tests that are out there?
Yeah, there are other assessments out there that are really fantastic. I'll just use a couple as an example. There are a lot of assessments out there. Some are better than others, and it really depends on what you want to use it for. Pamela, you and I have both been on journeys to understand our Enneagram number. And that's been a really powerful tool to help us understand core fears. It's based on kind of core wounding in our childhood. And it is not necessarily a scientifically backed survey. It is spiritual in nature. And I say that is a personal journey for people typically. Now, not everyone would agree with me. There are assessments out there that are better than others regarding the Enneagram, but it's a great companion assessment to grow your own awareness. There's also assessments out there that are used specifically for helping you understand what kind of career you would be great in. Strengths is better at helping you understand what kind of culture you would thrive or survive in or succeed in, or where you can contribute your best. But it's not going to be prescriptive in that you can look at someone's assessment and know exactly what kind of career is going to be best for them, because it's more about how you approach that career as opposed to what skills you have or what specific abilities you have. And then there are some that are based more on behavior. So I can think of a few that will put you in maybe one of 4 boxes. Those are helpful for quick insights, but it's not helpful for growth and development, both personally and as a team, because it assumes that people are fixed and stagnant and they don't have an ability to transform and continue to grow and develop within their personality or within their box that it's put them in. I'm a little wary of assessments that put people in minimal boxes.
Yeah, because you talk about showing up raw and showing up mature. And that's also one area that even this activity that we're doing here, it helps us to realize how we can mature in our strength rather than in the raw format that so many of us have this strength in.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's do this. Let's dive in. How we play this is everyone needs to have their strengths assessment in front of them and probably needs a basic understanding of their top 10. You need to have done some strengths exploration before you can play this. And then someone reads a scenario or gives a scenario, and then each person either writes down or draws a card of their strength that they would play in this situation. Okay. Sure. So I'm going to read it and Pamela and I are going to do this live. So when you have a lot on your plate, and you need to really focus on just getting things done. Which theme do you draw on? And for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to limit ourselves to one theme.
So hard.
I know it is hard.
When I have a lot on my plate, I will draw on my activation theme because it quickly allows me to take the things that I can get done first and either wipe those away because they're small, or depending on the mood that I'm in, assess which is going to take the most time that I dread and I just want to make it go away. And again, depending on the day, and this is what I love about strengths, is that I can show up either way. And so that's my card, activation.
Activator. Yeah, my activators certainly can come into play too with getting things done, but I probably more likely, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, draw on strategic, which is more filtering of given the outcome we're shooting for. So strategic will anchor into the future and then navigate forward. And so I will draw on strategic to say what needs to be filtered out. So this isn't ultimately important. This isn't going to be as important. These are the things that are going to be more important to get us to that. So I will anchor to the outcome typically. Then the activator will help me get things moving if I need to after that. But
you can't use two.
I'm not saying. I was using it in comparison and how it's different.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, next scenario. When you want to build trust in a new relationship.
The key word there for me is new, because it would be different if I was in a current relationship and I wanted to maybe be curious about something and build trust. So the key word is new. And in that place, it is connectedness. And within that, I am finding all the ways that we have things in common, ways that we can tell story, all of the things that will start to build bridges and build collaboration.
Yeah, interesting. I can see you using that and have seen you use that multiple times. I'm more likely to draw on my individualization first for new, to understand who they are uniquely and be curious about like their unique contribution. And hopefully, I think where it builds trust is if people feel seen, heard, and valued in that process.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit different approach.
Yeah.
When you want to show gratitude or appreciation.
Okay, you go first on this.
Me go first?
Yes, yeah.
I'm probably going to use communication. Communication is 5 for me, and it's a desire to verbally process. And I feel gratitude or appreciated when time is spent in that quality time, but part of that quality time is processing verbally.
Yeah.
And so I'm likely to show appreciation verbally as well.
Yeah. And for me, that's where I use the individualization really first, because there is knowing how people receive gratitude or appreciation individually. You just said it. I need words of affirmation. I need to be able to process through those things.
Yeah.
And so I want to know enough about those people to be able to give it to them in a way that really is meaningful and would surprise and delight them.
Yeah. You are good at verbalizing what is unique about each person and are really thoughtful and intentional in doing that as well. When you need to clarify expectations with colleagues.
Yeah, so this is where I love, again, that it's with colleagues, and I hopefully will courageously want to clarify. And so I'm using my restorative in that place, because trust is extremely important to me in the relational lane. I often talk about trust as a bank, and that I want to make sure that the bank doesn't go bankrupt. And if a situation has happened where I need to clarify expectations, there probably is a question on what they were. And I don't want to mistrust someone. And so I will reach out to make sure that we're understanding one another, that what I said was clear, what I am receiving from them, I'm hearing from them correctly. And so it really comes to having that courageous conversation for the sake of the relationship.
Yeah. And I want to speak just a little bit to restorative, or maybe have you speak a little bit more about restorative for people who might not be familiar with that strength. Restorative senses gaps or problems or potential problems and wants to prevent or solve them, and wants to dive in. Fight can be a bit of a firefighter, just diving into dysfunction sometimes to fix it.
Yeah.
So restorative wants to fix it. From a clarifying expectations, am I hearing you right that part of what's motivating to you is to prevent gaps or problems?
Yeah, I would want to make sure that I had spoken it clearly because there may have been either a misstep in my saying it or a miss from the person meeting my expectations. And did
Mm,
I say it incorrectly? Again, there's a gap, right?
yeah.
So was it because I didn't say it in a clear way or in a way that they heard it? Was there a misunderstanding? And again, it's all about restoring trust for
Mm,
me because
mhm.
I want to collaborate with you and I don't want this to get in the way.
Yeah. If you are listening and you're thinking about a team member who is always just checking in and making sure,
Mm,
that just recognize that there's probably a motivation. Generally speaking, people have good intentions. I really
mhm.
believe that. And after working with hundreds of people, thousands maybe even, I think both Pamela and I can say most people have good intentions.
Yeah.
We don't show up every day saying, how can I screw the day up for someone else?
No, that's another podcast.
No. And if you have those people, that's a whole other issue. But the reason I just say that is that pausing to just recognize that motivation. So for me, what's interesting when I need to clarify expectations, I am likely, and I know I'm going to break my own rule, just forgive me a second, but it's going to be probably a combination of futuristic and arranger. So futuristic, I'm going to think first about what is that end goal? And so I'm likely to start before I clarify detail, I'm likely to start by clarifying the big goal first. Even if the person asking me probably doesn't really want that, they just want the answer to the thing. In my mind, sometimes I can't even think about the detail until I've given the bigger picture because sometimes I'm also reminding myself. You combine that with high
Mm,
communication, I'm reminding myself of it so that I can get to the answer that person is looking for.
yeah.
So sometimes you're just hearing me think out loud until I can get you the answer that you're looking for. We're kind of laughing at each other because I
Yes.
think we've experienced this.
Yes.
And then it's a ranger. I will have already put an outline together. I will have already put bullet points down. I already have put all of the detail regarding it there. And so I'm going to refer back to the detail. Again, that might not be what someone's actually asking me, but my head is going to go there first.
And what I love, and gosh, this time has gone by really fast, but what I love is that both of us looked at this part of our game, quote unquote, air quotes there, and both of us read this differently
Yes.
because of our strengths. And for me, it was about restoring a relationship, and there was an expectation not being met, and that's how I read it. And you saw it as a little bit of a description. It sounds like
Yeah.
of a project, and so that's how different we can see one
Yeah.
sentence. And again, why we need to take this journey
Hmm.
to be able to be a grounded leader. Again, we can see and read one word and we can feel it in one way, we can interpret it in one way. We see it through the lens of our strengths, and what a powerful exercise that this is. I want to encourage all of you that those who have never gone on the strengths journey or taken this to continue to listen, because we are going to be exploring more of this along with what it looks like to show up as a grounded leader. And so I want to thank you so much for joining today. There is more information on the website at aligntransform.com. If you would like to see a specific topic covered, please email Tara, Tara, at aligntransform.com. And thank you so much for joining us today and for playing the strengths game with us. Can't wait to hear from you on your strengths journey and how you are growing and grounding as a leader.